So in this video, I'm going to talk about handmade paint versus mass manufactured paint or paint from a factory. Also, I'm hosting a giveaway for the NYX Mini 3. If you want to make a chance on winning this for free, it's a worldwide giveaway sponsored by NYX. Stick around to the end of the video and see how you can win this little colorimeter. Now let's get started. So as you can see over here, content is the first thing. Shape of the pen and how much paint there is in a pen. Obviously, the price of handmade paint is higher than the price of mass-produced paint. No matter how professional or how cheap they are, they're, I think, almost always cheaper than handmade paint. This is also because how it's manufactured. So I'm going to talk about that afterwards. Let's have a look. So the content of a pen, a gram equals a milliliter equals a gram. You can see there is a clear difference here. Then there's the way how they are produced. So not the paint itself, but the pans. How are they filled with paint? Some are extracted. Think a big sausage of paint paste extracted and cut into cakes. All cakes pasted or put into a pan, half pan. Others are poured. So handmade paint is always poured, almost always. Professional paint is almost always extracted, but there are some exceptions. So this is what that looks like, and there is a big difference. Why is there a difference? Well, because pouring takes a lot of time, right? Every layer needs to dry. If you don't do that, you get air bubbles in it. So you can see here, all the layers take a little time to dry, they shrink. Then you need to add another layer, then it shrinks and so on and so forth. This is an example with 3 layers, but some need 5 layers, some need even more. When you don't do that, this happens. It's not pretty. It can happen sometimes even when you pour in layers. Air bubbles can get trapped, especially when you use a dehydrator, because air expands when it gets warmer in a dehydrator. The air is quite warm. So expanding air creates larger air pockets. So it can happen sometimes. If it does with my paint, please contact me if I haven't seen it or overlooked it. But we try to avoid this as handmade watercolor paint makers by pouring small layers and giving it time. You really don't want this to happen. This was a pen I made as an example. I just poured it in one go, like to the edge. And as you can see, it kind of shrank a little bit, down the bottom, but there was a big air pocket inside of this half pen. So we don't want that. If you like this video so far, give that little thumbs up button a click. And if you still want to make a chance on winning this, stick around to the end of the video to find out how you can win it. Another difference, how are they produced? What is in the paint? So we're going to have a look at the picture. There's a dispersant, a brightener, filler, binder, and pigment in the like average paint, manufactured paint, and there's binder and pigment in the handmade watercolor paint, in this case dirty blue. So there's the text next to it. Note that both binders already include an average estimation of water, plasticizer, and humectant. In my case, that is honey and glycerin. These can vary from pigment to pigment and brand to brand. Are there always extra dispersants in the manufactured paint? No. Are they always brighteners? No, they aren't. Always fillers? No, but yes. The pigment load in comparison with the binder, so the proportions of those two are always kind of higher in pigment load with handmade watercolor paint. How do we notice this? We call them more pigmented. I have a video about that word. Don't look it up. But pigmented is often used in kind of the wrong context. In this case, we can speak of one is more pigmented than the other. There is literally more pigment in the one paint than the other. How do we notice the difference in this? It reactivates more quickly. Let's have a look. So as you could see, it was quite clear that one gave off much more pigment than the other with just hitting it with a wet brush. That was my paint. How is paint made? So let's talk about that. Maybe you know because you've watched my videos before, maybe you don't. But let's have a look anyway. We are looking at a binder and a pigment, a dry kind of solid versus a liquid. They don't mix well. Some mix better than others, but they won't dissolve. So we need to incorporate all these separate pigment particles into the binder. This is what we call dispersing the pigment into the binder, making sure every little grain of pigment is covered with a little layer of binder. So the first part is wetting. I do that with a palette knife. And then comes the more mixing. So almost mulling the paint. In my case, it's mulling using that glass thing. And then is dispersing. So that's mulling the paint in my case. You always need friction for this. And whether it is with a glass muller on a glass plate or whether it is on a big 3-roll mill in a factory, you always need pressure, downward pressure, and the friction. So that's what this looks like, very schematically. But in a 3-roll mill, what I was talking about, it looks like this. So there's 3 rolls, all moving the opposite direction, and the first 2 rolls have a larger space. The second rolls, or actually the middle and the last one, have a little more narrow space in between them. And we're talking microns here, right? This can go with a lot more force and a lot finer and a lot more consistent than what I can do with my muller, with my glass muller, and my strength, right? So I can push down as much as I want. This thing will win when it comes to consistency and strength. So glass muller, glass plate. This is what paint making looks like in a very fast way. Now let's compare different paints. What we have here from left to right, we have like hobby kids, very cheap paint. I think it was €2 for 14 tubes. It says ultramarine, mind you, it says ultramarine. Then we have student quality paint, but it's quite high student quality paints. The ones that I have, Van Gogh or Van Gogh, and Arteza, Sennelier as the artist's quality paint core, from Golden as the artist's quality paint, and then the the Handmade watercolor version in a tube from yours truly. So what do we notice? There is a lot of color differences. One is darker, one is lighter. There is even a color that doesn't even look like ultramarine blue, but it says ultramarine blue, and that's the left one. That's the cheapest one. That's also the one that didn't have any pigment information. So all the others have PB29. As you can see, the Muller stamp in the top, PB29, and the dry pigment over there, by the way, PB29 as a pigment. The Sennelier had a little bit of PV15, ultramarine violet in it, since it's the French ultramarine version. I didn't have the other one. But look-wise, there isn't a lot of difference. You will notice this when you start to dilute it. So one is more tinted than the other. The pigment load is higher in one paint than the other. You will notice that difference. In handmade watercolor paint, that pigment load is highest most of the time. A mass manufactured paint is way more consistent over every batch than handmade watercolor paint. That is just a fact. I try to be as consistent as possible, so I have some tools for it. A spectrometer, photo spectrometer, and a Handmade gauge. I also use my microscope to check for pigment quality before I start making batches that I sell. But everything is used in the factories as well. So I hope you liked this video, giving you a little look on, why the one thing is more expensive than the other, explaining it maybe a bit better by comparing it. Now for the giveaway. If you want to make a chance on winning this, leave a comment down below on what you prefer, Do you like tubes better? Do you like to work with pens? Which kind of brands? Handmade, mass manufactured, artist quality, student quality, you name it. What do you use, or what do you use for which purpose? Are there any differences? Let me know in the comments down below, and make a chance on winning this. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you don't follow me already, please give my channel a follow, and see you next video.